Hey, what is up? My name is Chris and welcome to Coding in Public. Today I'm working on this custom music player that's built with entirely HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I should mention this is built loosely on Brad Traversy's music player that he did a few months ago. I watched this a few months ago, but I was trying to figure out how I could build something that would come back from like getting server data. So fetching server data and then building a music player off of that. And then I wanted to add several other kind of cool features to it. So like I added in here, if you play this, you can actually adjust the speed here. And then when you click, it'll keep playing if it already was playing. And if you had it paused, it won't. It'll just jump to the next section. From Brad, I remember I got this where you can kind of click along and it'll actually play. When you get to the end, it'll go ahead and jump to the next track that you've got as well. And then this kind of expands and contracts depending if you're playing it or not playing it. So there's a bunch of cool features here. It's fully responsive. And you may notice that this is actually live on the web. I'll include a link here to the actual website. And then in addition to that, I'll have a repo that you can look at as well if you're interested in checking out the code more thoroughly. If you haven't watched Brad's yet, go ahead and give that a watch. I've done several things differently than he has, so I feel good about posting this, but I know that there's some similarities between our projects, but I think I've changed it significantly enough that it was helpful for me to kind of code out some of those things the way I would do it. And so that's what I've done. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Today we're going to look at just HTML and CSS. Okay, so I've got this HTML page, and what we're going to do is just go ahead and fill out a few things. We'll call this like music player, something like that. And I've got style CSS sheet over here and app.js. So let's go ahead and link those up. So I'll say link, CSS, let's see, script, src, and we'll do app.js. And to make this load after the body, I'll say defer. And then throughout the project, we're going to be using this thing called phosphor icons, which I've looked at in a previous video. But to get started here, let's see, we're going to just use this one-liner script. We're not writing React or Vue code. And then it'll just give you this unpackaged script link. So I'm going to grab this and just copy it up here as well. And then because it's a normal font, you can basically adjust the size of the icon by font size. And we'll be doing that in our CSS. But there's a bunch of cool fonts in here. We're going to be searching for them and adding them here in a little bit. But you can add them as regular, filled, dual tone, kind of whatever you want. We're also going to use this font. So let me grab this, and I'm just going to add it to my HTML here. So I'm going to link it up here, and then we will use this in our CSS. So I think that's mostly everything. Let's come over here to our style.css. I've got just a basic clear setup here. And again, this will all be in the repo. And then just some basic variables, CSS variables setup. I am going to come in here before I do anything else, make sure I add that font family. And let's see, app.js is totally empty, but except for a bunch of pseudocode, which I'll walk you through next video when we get to that. Okay, so we've got kind of the base head ready to go here. Let's add something in the body so we can see what's going on here. So I'll just do an H1 that says like hi or something like that. And then I've got live server running here in VS Code. So I'll open it up here and there we go, hi. All right, let's jump down to our HTML and give ourselves a little bit of space. And I'm going to remove this, and we're going to add, first of all, just something called a music container. This is going to hold every single thing in our HTML. We're going to add the audio file up here. And we'll just say an ID of audio. This isn't going to show in the UI at all, but it is important. We're going to update the source tag of this in JavaScript. Next, we'll have an H2 that has a class of music title, and that will be happy clappy. All right, which it'll be different things depending on what we're doing, but I'm going to add something in here so you can actually see it when we're building it out. Next, we're going to add a div with music image as the class. And right now we're not going to put anything in that. We will actually style that in our CSS as a background image. And then everything else is going to be inside what I'm calling music player. And inside this music player, we're going to have several things. If I jump back over here to the live example, that's this section down this way. So first of all, we're going to have our progress kind of bar. So if I play this, you see this bar pops up here. And so that's the first thing we'll have. So I'll say music player progress. And then inside here, I'm going to have a div with the class of progress on it. And then I'll jump below that. We're going to add our 3 buttons. So we'll say button, and I'm going to give this an ID of previous and a class of action. And then inside here, I'm going to have let's see, let's go ahead and search for back or something like that, I think is what I had it as. Skip back circle. I think that's what I grabbed. And we're just going to grab this HTML code here and add that in there. Next, let's copy this down 2 more times. And I'm just holding Option Shift and the down arrow, and that's what gives me, allows it to copy it down for me. We're going to change that to play, this one to next, and then this one I think is, let's do next and see if that pulls up what we need. Yeah, so forward circle. I'll just go ahead and copy this since we've got it here. Let's see, down here. And then we'll do play as well. And I think I had play circle is what I was using. And I'll jump in this way and add the button there. So far, if I jump back to my actual HTML, we've got those 3 lined up right next to each other. And the final thing I need to add is a little speed button, which will allow us to shift the speed. Now, you don't have to do this as a button, but if you do, you can tab to it and use the space bar, and it's also more accessible. So we're going to do that, a button with the class of speed. All right, and then inside here, I will go ahead and add a paragraph, and I'm just for now going to say like 1.0x to show that that's the current speed that we're at. Okay, so that's all we're going to do for our HTML. Let's jump over to our CSS. This is where we'll spend the rest of our time, and let me hide that sidebar. There's no reason to have all that open. And let me zoom in just a little bit more. All right, so let's go up to our body here, and the first thing we're going to do is add a height of 100 view height on it, and then we'll do a background. Let's now do display grid, and then we'll do place items center. So put everything in the center of the page. Next, let's grab our music container. That's what holds every single thing, the title, the image, all of that. We're going to say display grid, and we'll do a grid gap of 1.5 rem. That will give it spacing between the elements that are inside it. So the title, the play bar, all that kind of stuff. Next, we're going to do a margin of 1.5 rem. Now, that's not going to be super discernible on this big screen, but as you get on smaller screens, that gives it space from the outside edges of the screen. We're going to position this relative, and that's so that we can add a z-index here, which pulls it out of the kind of the flow of the document higher up. That'll allow us to put things below it, and I'll show you that a little bit later here. Next, we're going to say we want it to have a max width of 500 pixels, so no bigger than that, but a min width of 40 view width. All right, next we're going to do z, oh no, I already did my z indexed. So the next thing we'll do is we'll come to our music title, and we're going to say we want the color to be our var of blue, and these are the variables I pulled in up top here just so you didn't have to see me type colors, even though I typed that linear gradient for some reason. Then we'll do a background color, and here we're going to do a var of light. And if I save that, you see it pulls in there. Now let's get a little more space around those letters. So we'll do a padding of 1.5 rem and then 2.5 rem. So that's up and down and then left and right. And we'll do a width of 100%, which means it tries to fill its parent container. Next, because this font is a little spread out for my liking, we'll do a letter spacing of -1 pixel, and that will kind of scooch it together just a bit more. And then we'll do a border radius of our radius. And then finally, let's do text align of center. Okay, let's jump over to our music image. That's the image that we're going to pull in with JavaScript dynamically. For now, just so we can see what that's going to look like, let's do a background image, and I'm going to actually add it from my folder here, photos. Sure, deep space works. Okay, so that will come up here in just a second. Let's go ahead and say the background size needs to be cover. That means it won't get squashed or anything like that. We want the background position to be, let's see, center. Put it in the very center. And then we do need to actually give it a height because it's just a div here. It doesn't have any natural height to it. And so we'll do that 40 view height. And then we'll say our max width will be 100%. And that will ensure that the photo sizes correctly. It doesn't break out of that. And we'll do our border, a radius of radius. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm seeing here that I'm not getting the spacing I want. Let's see what's going on. I should have a grid gap on this. Let's see, grid, that's the body. That's not what I'm looking for. Music container. Music container. Let's make sure this is all spelled correctly. Music container. Aha, okay, that's the reason. All right, so now we've got our spacing correct there. Always spell correctly unless you can't, and then make sure you can catch it. Okay, so we've got the image there. We're going to remove that once we get to the JavaScript, and we'll dynamically add that. For now, it's hard to style it without knowing what is there, so we've done that. All right, now let's grab the music player, and we're going to say the background color should be our var of light. And if I save it, you'll see it starts to populate there. We're going to do a box shadow, and we'll do 0 pixels to the right, 4 pixels down, and then 4 pixels blur in our var of light. And that should give it a nice little kind of hazing effect there. Actually, I think I wanted that the var of dark. Yeah, there we go. And then we'll do our border radius. Radius of radius. Broader radius. I misspelled it twice. All right, here we go. And then I only want this to be a width of 85% at the most, so that it doesn't go the full width of the picture. And then we'll do a max width of like 250 pixels. We'll do margin of -5 rem, auto, and then 0 down. So -5 is up, auto is left to right, and 0 would be down. Let's give it a little bit of breathing room. So we'll say 0.5 rem and then 1 rem. So that's left and right and up and down. And here we want this to be position relative because we're going to actually work those that play thing and the button down here for the speed based off of this music player. There'll be a position absolute, and so we need this to be position relative so that I can play with that music player. Okay, we'll set the z index of this to, let's do initial. So what it initially was, it should stay there anyhow, but just to make sure it works well with those position absolute, that's what we're going to do. And then we'll do display grid and grid template columns, auto, auto, and auto. Now you can obviously do flex on this as well, but I like using grid gap because it's better supported than the flex stuff. So 1 rem, that spaces out the icons properly, and right now we're getting a problem. You might notice, you might remember we've got that progress bar here. It's got nothing in it, but it's holding a space. These 3 are holding a space, and then this is holding a space. We're going to make this and this position absolute, so these eventually will be stacked right next to each other. So that's what's going on currently. Let's finally say we want to transition, and I do have an actual variable for transition, just so I don't have to type it out each time. So as it transitions, that should work for us. I think the last thing I need to do is say place items center, and that will center everything, which right now it's the way it's stacking, it looks that way anyhow. Now let's go ahead and jump over here and let's grab our speed, and let's grab our music player dash progress. And let's just kind of get these position absolutes so they kind of pull out and we can actually get the other things set up the way we wanted to. So I'll come down here, and this one was called speed. Okay, so those are out of the picture, and we can continue to style what we've already got set up. Okay, now we're going to change everything based on just a single class on this music player. So we'll say music player, and that will be whenever we have the class of playing on it. And what we're going to do, first of all, just on the actual, this area right here, is we're going to remove the top left and the top right borders. So we can do that by saying border radius, and then we'll say 0, 0, and then we'll do a radius again here. And then that'll stack up. When we add this playing class, you'll see, if I come over here and I hit play, you'll see that it goes straight in these corners here. And that's what we're trying to change. Okay, next let's do our action buttons. Those are all 3 of our buttons have that class of action on them. And we need to do a few things because these are buttons. First of all, we want to make sure the background color is set to nothing so that they don't have that kind of gray color on them. And then we'll change the color to var of blue. And the icon should actually pick that up because they're just font. And so the font inside the button should pick whatever that is up. We can also then change the font size the same way with these phosphor icons, which is cool. And then we'll say display grid, and let's see, display grid. And then we want to place items center to make sure that the buttons are in the center of or the icons are in the center of the buttons. For some reason that color is not, I think this needs to be none. I'm still seeing it. Let's just do light because we know what that is. and that should take care of it. Okay, cool. Whenever somebody hovers over these, obviously we want them to look like buttons, so we'll say cursor of pointer, and then I think that's everything I need to do on this. Okay, now when we hover over these buttons, we want them to actually shift and change so people can tell that we're doing stuff. So we're going to say action, and we're going to use this is selector. And then if you haven't used one of these before, it's basically just like typing action, hover, action, focus. But you can do it like this, and you can add a bunch of different things. And so I like that kind of newer way to write these, and I think it's easier to tell what's going on too. So we're going to change this to color var of pink, not park. And then we'll do an outline of none, since that should be a pretty obvious transition. And then we'll say transition of transition, or var of transition. Okay, so now when I come over here, it should just hover, yeah, just like that. And whether I focus by tabbing like I just did a second ago, there you go, it'll shift it. Or obviously, if I hover my mouse over it, that'll work the same way. Now we've got this music player progress. That's kind of the next thing we need to work on here. And right now this is still getting in our way, this speed absolute. So let's say display of none, and just so it hides and so we can actually see the button there. Okay, cool. So music player progress. We need to do a few things. We've got position absolute already. This is going to be that top bar up top here. And so what we want it to do is we want to make sure it's behind that parent element. And because the grandparent element has a z-index of 10, and the normal element here, this music player element, has a z-index of 0, if we do -1, it should hide it behind there. So that's what we want it to do. And then we're going to manually give it a height. Remember, it's just a div, so it's got nothing in it. And we'll say the width needs to be 100% of its parent. And then we want it to be top of -10%, which pushes it down, that 10%. And a background color, we'll do our var of blue. And then we want to make sure that overflow is hidden. And that's because of the way we're going to use the div inside of this, which is called progress. So here's what we're styling. This inside of it will not have a border radius. This one, oh, let's cancel that. This one will. And so we're going to use that overflow hidden to kind of make the child look like it also has that radius. I'll show you what I mean in a second here. So border radius, and kind of like we did before, we're going to do our radius, and then our radius, and then 0, 0, except it's kind of the opposite of what we did for the parent with the playing class selected. So I'll show you that in a second. In fact, let's go ahead and, so normally we're going to have this transform of, let's see, translate y. So this pushes it up and down, and we're going to say 120% is what normal would be. But I'll have to apply a class so you can see kind of what's going on there. And we'll do a transition of transition, and then a cursor of pointer so that we can click along that path anywhere we want, and that should work out just fine. Now let's go ahead and come down here and say that whenever a music player has the class of playing on it, then we want to, by adding this space, we're saying the thing inside of it that has a class of music player progress, we want this to transform, translate, let's see, y, and we're going to go back to the 0 position and change this z-index to 0 as well. Although I guess we don't really have to. Let's remove this and see if that works without it. Now we haven't yet styled the actual progress bar, but let's go ahead and come over here to the index, and let's add the class of, what was that, playing? Okay, so it should be popping up here. You'll notice that that's changed. So let's see what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, grab this music player. Progress is up there. I'm not seeing anything though. Okay, it's because I do need that z-index of 0. Past me wasn't as dumb as I thought. Okay, so I do need that. But now what we want to do, so this is because this class of playing is on music player. But let's come down here and let's actually apply some styling to that progress div. So this will be that pink div that kind of pulls across as it plays to show the progress of the song. So this one also will need to be position absolute, and its parent is also position absolute. That's the actual progress, music player progress, if that's not confusing. Background color, we're going to do a var of pink, and then width will be 0%, and height will be 100%. So that's 0% of its parent and 100%. Just so we can see what this looks like though, let's do 40% right now. So you can see it pulling across there. That's what we want, but its height is 100%. And then we'll do also on here the cursor of pointer so that if they want to jump back, they can actually click back here, up here, wherever they want. So eventually we're going to update that. Right now, let's leave it at 0. And now you see kind of all that looks like. Let's remove, actually, let's keep that on because we're going to need to keep that playing class on to see the speed indicator down below. Speaking of speed, all right, we're getting close. I know this is a lot kind of smashed in here, but I mainly try to focus on JavaScript, so I don't want to spend too much time on CSS, but hopefully talking through this is helpful and not super overwhelming. Again, there's code in the description if you want to just grab that and copy it and worry about JavaScript. I will not tell anyone. All right, let's come in here and we're going to say we need a height of 3.5 rem. And because this is a button, we need to go ahead and remove the default browser styling here. And so we want the font size and the font family of inherit. So that'll inherit from the body itself. And then we'll say color needs to be our light color. And you see it's right there currently, which is impossible to see. So we're going to move it down here in a second. In fact, maybe let's go ahead and add our background color so we can see that first. Background color, and we're going to do, I think we have blue. All right, and then let's do bottom of 0. That should pull it down some. For some reason, it is not turning the background color different. Oh, this needs to be actual variable. That's why. Let's see. Blue. There we go. Okay, so you can see it there. It's on the bottom. We're going to slide it down, remember, with that playing class active. The next thing we need to do then is say left of 50%. That will move it over 50% of its parent container, which is this white box. And that means we need to actually transition it or transform it itself, translate it back 50%. So we'll say transform, translate, and now we're going to move it both left and right and up and down. So now we should be able to just say 50% and 0%. Okay, cool. Next, we're going to say display grid, and then we'll do place items center. This ensures that that paragraph is in the dead center of that, even if it has to flex and move a little bit. And then we do want to give it padding just to give it a little bit of space. We'll give it a padding of like 0.5 rem and 1 rem, and that should give it just kind of the space that we need. All right, lastly, we're going to do a border radius, and it'll be kind of the opposite of what's up top. So we'll say 0, 0, and then our var of radius and our var of radius. And that'll just kind of curve it on the bottom. Now, we are going to need to be behind its parent. And so just like we did up above, we're going to say z index -1, and that should hide it behind it. And then we'll come down here and say whenever we've got, let's see, what was that? Play, music playing. Here we go. Let's just copy this down. Except instead of music player progress here, it'll be speed. So whenever there's an active or the class of playing on its parent, then we will come in here and we'll say z, let's see, transform, translate, and here we'll still do -50%, but here we'll do 100%, and that should pull it down so that we can actually see it. Maybe let's do more like 90, so it's not too visible there. And then let's add a little extra padding up top here. So let's change this to like 6, 7, something like that. And then let's change the bottom one to 0.5 rem, and that way it should look just about even. Okay, cool, that will work. Okay, so with that, when we come over here and hover, we're gonna want to show a cursor. So let's see, I guess, yeah, let's just come up here and say pointer of cursor. Nope, cursor of pointer, I always mess that up. Cursor of pointer, and now when I hover, yeah, okay, cool. Now, when we're gonna do the same kind of is selector, so we'll say whenever it is hover or it is focus, then we're going to make a shift. Now on this original one, let's see what I've got here. I've got this, man, that's ugly. What was I thinking? All right, let's not do that. That looks like the worst. Maybe let's just switch the background color to our var of light. Let's see, our var of light. There we go. And then we'll have to change the color, obviously, to our var of blue. Much better. And then let's see, did we have a border on this? We didn't. So let's add a border of, I don't know, 6 pixels, solid, and we'll do our blue, which you won't be able to really tell what's going on there. But when we change the inside there to white, you should be able to see that. That's much better than that weird pink. What was I thinking? All right, and finally, actually, I think we might be set. So this hovers correctly, these jump correctly here. These will slide in and out. Let's go ahead and just double check that that sliding effect works. So let's come in here, music player, music title. Here we go, playing. We got to remove this. Let's remove it. Moment of truth. Hey, it slides down. Okay, cool. We might have to adjust 1 or 2 things if we realize that they're not quite right, but that looks like a semi-complete project to me. So next is JavaScript. Again, if you need the code, it's in the description, and you can play around with the website, including the ugly pink color in the description. All right, I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Happy coding.